Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Haleh Moddasser, Managing Partner at Stearns Financial Group, to discuss how women view the financial services industry, the gray divorce niche, and demand for ESG investing. Haleh, it is great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you so much for having me, Jill.
You got it. Let's talk about women in finance. How much of the nation's worth are they controlling, and how do they think of the financial services industry?
So what's shocking to most people is that women control up to 2/3 of the nation's wealth. And by wealth, we mean assets above $500,000 in their own name. 2/3 is equal to roughly $20 trillion, which is what our nation's debt was prior to the pandemic. So it's a huge swath of assets.
And, it's interesting. One of the data points you provided was how women agree on nearly 80% of the top issues, regardless of their political affiliation. I thought that was really interesting to point out.
Yeah, I wrote a book about ESG investing mainly because I find that women are generally very interested in leaving a legacy and creating a better world. So they're more likely to invest in alignment with their values. But as part of that, I surveyed 500 high net worth women across the nation, 50% Democrat, 50% Republican, and found that they agreed on 80% of general social issues that are pretty controversial, like gun control and climate and some such. So my conclusion from that is that this really isn't a political divide. It's perhaps more of a socioeconomic divide that we're looking at in the nation as a whole.
Yeah, that's interesting. Would you say women are satisfied or dissatisfied with the financial services industry? Do you think that they are being serviced and their wealth being looked after the right way?
I can't tell you how many women clients I have coming to me who have just left their existing traditional male advisor. They walk into the office and there's a cutout of Michael Jordan and the ticker symbol across the screen and CNBC on TV, and they immediately freeze. So I think that women generally feel talked over, talked down to, patronized by the financial services industry. Something like 70% of women are dissatisfied with the financial services industry. And given the amount of wealth that women control, I think it's really important that the financial services industry hears that and actually starts providing something else other than just changing the font to pink, right?
Well, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the next gen of financial advisor does play out as you have wealth transfer that's coming up. We are going to start to see millennial Gen Z advisors come into the fray. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. And I'm sure you'll do work on that as well. But tell me about the gray divorce niche. What is that? How is that impacting how women approach financial services?
So that's just immediate money in motion. Most women who are boomers, and we're talking gray divorces, divorce over the age of 50 among longtime married couples. So it's generally boomers getting divorces. And in those scenarios, most of the time, the women have delegated investment management to their husbands. So the family broker or advisor is really the husband's broker or advisor. And so generally a woman going through a gray divorce is looking for a new financial advisor, a new estate planning attorney, a new CPA. And I find that they're looking for something different. They don't want to be patronized. They don't want to be told that they're risk averse when studies actually show that men are overconfident. They don't want to be told that they can't invest when studies show that they actually earn 1% or more a year compared to males. Because women aren't emotional investors. They don't day trade. They have the long view in mind, which makes them the optimal investor.
Right. Well, I mean, is part of that lack of education in the financial services industry? It's 2024. It's shocking to me. I mean, granted, we're talking about an older demographic where couples aren't more open or women aren't taking more of an initiative to either have joint control or take over some sort of control. And again, I wonder if that's a demographic shift that we'll see in the next 10 to 20 years, but it seems as if the industry might have some responsibility here as well. Again, it's 2024, and I can't imagine that, that many women are not at least thinking about joint control.
Ironically, they're just not. I even have recently read a study that younger millennials are delegating the same thing. So I don't know what it is about the way that we're raising girls, but somehow it's not very sexy for women to talk about money. And so they just kind of delegate that away while they do other things. They control the budget, but they don't control their long-term savings, investments, retirement assets generally. They're not that in tune with it. And so my job as an advisor is to ensure that women show up at meetings, that I develop a connection with that woman, that she doesn't feel ignored during meetings, which often happens, where the advisor is talking to the husband and the woman is just kind of superfluous. So I do think that we have a very important role in educating women, particularly now, because of the amount of wealth that they control.
Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is too, women generally live longer as well. I mean, people in general are living longer, and you need to think about your assets, not just towards what you might consider typical retirement age. Who knows how long Social Security is going to be there to support that? Pensions aren't really a thing anymore. So, I mean, even longevity is a factor.
Yeah, completely. And women generally have lower Social Security because of childbearing years and whatnot, and they generally outlive their spouses. So it just doesn't make common sense to delegate investment management to someone who's going to predecease you, because you're very vulnerable when your spouse dies, and that's when you become a target for financial predators selling products, willing to take care of you, quote unquote. I mean, I've seen a lot of horror stories that happen in that scenario. And in fact, I'm seeing a sort of rise in the number of couples coming in to see us where the husband has self-managed his assets his whole life, but now he's trying to develop a relationship with an advisor because he wants to ensure his wife is going to be taken care of if he's not around.
All right, Haleh, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you, Jill.